A little bit of a mixed bag of news for your Golden State Warriors. After a very hot start to this 2024-25 NBA season, they've been hit with a little bit of an injury bug, but there are some positive elements to that. We'll dive into everything as far as Golden State's health goes on today's video. But first, if you guys want Golden State to get healthy, because at this team's best, they are their healthiest, right? With the big way that this team has been able to start off 10-2 so far this season is their depth. So we need them to be deep and have everybody available to go out there and play for Steve Kerr and his great group of assistant coaches, who we'll also talk about on today's show. So hit that like button if you want Golden State to get healthy, and we'll get on with Warriors today. All right, what's going on, Dub Nation? Got a little bit of an injury update coming for you on today's edition of Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I am Tyler Smith, and my guy Anthony Slater always gives us the best Warriors news on Twitter. Give him a follow if you always want to be up to date on everything with your Golden State Warriors, as well as me. Give me a follow on Twitter as well. But he says Kevon Looney is out tonight for the Warriors at Clippers. Illness, and that is something that we've known for a couple of days now. He's questionable. They decided to hold him out tonight against LAC. It's going to unfortunately hurt because the Clippers have a great front court presence in Ivica Zubac, and Looney would provide good protection against him. Said he wasn't at shoot-around. Steph Curry and Lindy Waters III are still listed as questionable, so likely those two are true game-time decisions here. Both went through shoot-around this morning in Los Angeles. So a little bit more with this Steph Curry injury as to what it exactly is. A little bit of a flare-up. Doesn't seem like it's something that he's going to be kept out multiple games for. It says Steph Curry is questionable at Clippers tomorrow with left knee bursitis. Kevon Looney is questionable with illness. Now he's been ruled out. So the Steph injury here, left knee bursitis, I looked it up, and it is not something that is necessarily a true, like, oh, this happened during the game. The way this injury happened. No, it's just a little bit of a swelling and fluid nonsense going on with this. Listen, as I'm not a doctor, all I know is that this is not something that's going to keep Steph out long term, but it is something that the Warriors want to take precaution with, as Steph's lower body has been a little bit of an issue so far this year. He's had to miss those games with an ankle. You don't want Steph being shelled for long stretches of time because how good are the Golden State Warriors going to be without him? For a long stretch, we don't know. The 4-game stretch at the beginning of the season where teams are still trying to figure themselves out, that is a time where you can keep Stephen Curry out. But as the season goes on, we want him to be available when the games become more consequential, when teams are starting to fight for playoff positioning and seeding. I worry about Golden State's offense without Stephen Curry on the floor. If he's not going to play tonight against the Clippers, that's one of the only games they've lost so far this season, the game he went out in game number 3 of the year. So I'm worried about Golden State's offense and how it functions. We showed you guys in the last video how the numbers are so vastly different, especially offensively, with Steph Curry on the floor versus with off the floor. But Golden State also has the luxury of being a 10-2 ball club right now, atop the Western Conference, and really starting hot to the season. They have the opportunity to, if they feel like they need to, and really want to take precaution with Steph, hold him out for a game or two here with this left knee flaring up, and see what happens. The Clippers aren't necessarily a powerhouse team. They might be a little bit of a mismatch for you guys in the front court, but if you want to hold him out now, that is something that I'm okay with. You got to have him be available for when the games matter come May, come April, when playoffs are around the corner. But also, Kevon Looney dealing with that illness. It feels like an illness has kind of gone through the Golden State Warriors over the past couple of days. But get well soon, Looney. We're going to need you because, especially against a team like the Clippers, Zubac went for 18 to 15 against you last game. It's probably going to happen again tonight because, you only have one real guy who can match up with him down low. Trey Jackson-Davis can't play 48 minutes, and he's not going to be in there the entire time that Zubac is in there. Golden State's going to have to really focus down low, and Draymond Green's going to have to play bigger than he normally does tonight as well. The other piece of injury news that we have on today's show, this is where it actually kind of becomes good news for Golden State, as Lindy Waters III took a scary fall contesting a Santi Aldama dunk early on against the Memphis Grizzlies. Remember, with Anthony Melton out, Lindy Waters III started that game for Golden State. So he was seeing extended minutes, but only 10 minutes in, he goes up and contests a big-time dunk and falls and really hurts his knee there. A hyperextension is what it ended up being. But according to Anthony Slater and according to the Warriors, he's avoided any serious injury. He said he's avoided any serious injury after a scary fall to his left knee the other night. Hyperextension, he is questionable tomorrow versus the Clippers. And like we said before, Lindy Waters III went through shoot-around today. So it's good to know that he could potentially be back as early as tonight. According to Danny Emmerman here, Lindy Waters III practiced today and should be good to go, per Steve Kerr. But I wanted to include this tweet in today's show because of this second part here. D'Anthony Melton Still no timetable with his sprained ACL. We'll know more over the next couple of days. But thank goodness that the Golden State Warriors avoided disaster here with this Lindy Waters III injury. When his name has been called up upon, like we knew before the season started that Steve Kerr explicitly said Lindy Waters III won't be in the rotation to start the season. But injuries came up, and he had to be, and he stepped up to the plate and made it happen. I mean, 50% from the field, and I believe he's shooting close to 40% from three-point range. And when his number's called, he gets out there. He plays both sides of the ball really, really effectively with high effort, and he can knock down the three when it's asked of him. And that's all you can ask for from a guy who's projected to be the 12th, 13th man on this Warriors roster heading into the season. But unfortunately, the bad news of today is we still don't have a timetable on DeAnthony Melton, and that really sucks because he's Golden State's best point of attack defender that is also a plus on the offensive end. I can't, go back and forth between him and Gary Payton II. I know who I think is going to be the better defender on a nightly basis. But what DeAnthony Melton can provide on the offensive end of the floor is, initiating offense, taking the ball up, letting Steph Curry be able to work off the ball while also being able to guard the opponent's best guard on the other end. Like DeAnthony Melton's value has been invaluable to Golden State so far this year. And now we're going to see Golden State's guard depth be tested even more with a potentially Lindy Waters being out, with potentially Steph being out. Guys like Moses Moody is going to have to step up. Brandon Pajemski. I need to hear from you guys, though. Who so far through the start of this season needs to step up as Golden State faces injury? Somebody who's maybe not produced to the level we thought they would so far this year. Who needs to step up as Golden State has been hit with the injury bug? Let me know down in the comments section. And this is kind of my number one guy right here, Brandon Pajemski. Where has he been? Now, to be fair, Pajemski has also dealt with the illness. That's kind of what I was talking about before, is it's kind of going through the Golden State Warriors clubhouse here. Brandon Pajemski was hit with an illness. They held him out one game, and then he was, for the past two or so, he's been playing through fatigue, and he's kind of been trying to work himself back into basketball shape. And he acknowledged that he needs to be better out there on the court. Earlier today, when he was seen by the media after shoot-around, he said that he's been a minus in the plus-minus category over the past couple of games, and that's just not something that he's used to. Now he's used to, positively impacting winning, and in some of these games, even, he's the only guy in the minus category when everybody else has been a net positive for Golden State. So Brandon Pajemski has to be better. He has to be better in the scoring department. He's not the best on-ball defender, but he's got to keep putting his body on the line, keep making those effort plays on the defensive end, diving for loose balls, taking charges, doing what he is, necessarily being asked to do, is go out there and just be a glue guy. Dip your hand into every bit of that stat sheet and, bump up the scoring numbers too. I need Pajemski to be better because they decided to keep him over some potential big-time scorers that could be on this roster so far this year. But next, we're going to talk about this roster as a whole. And two names who have, not necessarily on the player side of the roster, but two names in the coaching staff that have really transformed things for Golden State this season. We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I got to give a major shout out to today's sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports platform with over 10 million active members. And you guys can get started today with a free $50 in your account on Prize Picks when you use our promo code CLNS and you place your first $5 entry. Now, you might be asking, how do you place an entry on Prize Picks? It's so simple. All you guys got to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 player stat projections and just pick more or less, whether it's rebounds in basketball, goals in hockey, fantasy points in football, so much more. And before these big sports seasons start, they even give you season-long projections on Prize Picks. Here's what I took before the basketball season began. Steph Curry more than 26.5 points per game. He's only at 22.5 right now, but a couple of early season blunders from him. He's going to get right and get above 26.5 points per game. Zachary Rizache, maybe I don't know ball about the #1 overall pick in Atlanta. He's having a pretty solid impact, averaging about 12 points per game so far. I have the less on 10.3 points per game in his rookie season. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he needs to have a little bit of an uptick as well, as I have the more than 30.5 points per game average. You can tail my picks. You can fade my picks. Just make sure you go and do it at Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use that promo code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you place your first $5 entry. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. So I need to give props to a group of two men who I really have not mentioned so far this year on Warriors Today. And that's Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse. Two assistant coaches who've been brought in by Steve Kerr after, unfortunately, one of the coaches last season did pass away. Remember the DM patches on Golden State's jerseys. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name right now because that would just be disrespectful. But he unfortunately passed away. And then Kenny Atkinson was prat away by the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are now 15-0 to start the NBA season. He's their head coach. So what does Golden State decide to do? They bring in Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse to help run both sides of the ball for Golden State. Now, Steve Kerr hired Terry Stotts to fine-tune the offense, because Golden State necessarily wasn't a bad offense last year. How could you be a bad offense when you have Steph Curry, Clay, Draymond, like all these cats in one spot? You're not going to be a bottom-of-the-league offense. But he wanted to fine-tune. He wanted to put it at the upper echelon of today's NBA, because you need to be a high-octane offense in order to contend for a championship. The game has changed. You got to get a lot of shots up. The volume has to be there. And Terry Stotts has helped do just that. I mean, I'm going to show you guys a couple of numbers right here. Things might get a little boring. We're flashing numbers back and forth, but I really want to show you that it's been night and day on both sides of the ball for Golden State this year. Talk about offensive rating. In 23-24, they were the 9th, so not necessarily bad, but this year they're up to the 4th. Like, they're just making improvements in that regard. Points per 100 possessions. What about points per game? Just raw numbers as far as how many buckets they're getting on a nightly basis. In 2023-24, they were the 8th, and now they're the 3rd. Like, just getting more possessions and getting more quality looks for Golden State, and also getting a lot more three-pointers up a night, has really helped this Golden State Warriors offense transform into what it is right now. And that's why I bring up next the three-point percentage. Last year, like I said, they weren't bad, but what did Steve Kerr say before the start of the season? He wants to get up a ton of threes, and he wants to make a ton of threes, because the teams that take the most and make the most win the most. And what are they doing? They're the second most efficient three-point shooting team in the NBA, and I believe they're top 5 in attempts as well. I mean, listen, to be fair, the credit can't all go to Steve Kerr, and it can't all go to Terry Stotts. Like, credit to the people that Mike Dunleavy has brought in free agency. DeAnthony Melton hits threes at a high clip. Buddy Hield, I mean, he's scorching. We know what Buddy has done so far this year for the Dubs. And, Kyle Anderson, who spaces the floor, not necessarily a guy who's hitting a ton of threes at a high clip right now, but he spaces the floor and helps get the ball from the high post to the outside when defenses collapse in on him. And Draymond's hitting threes as well. Steph's obviously shooting lights out. Lindy Waters III, who they bring in via trade, is hitting threes at a high clip as well. Like, this is all coming together. Steve Kerr's vision is all coming together for Golden State, and I think his vision for the defense is coming together as well. As that's what he brought Jerry Stackhouse in to go and do. He came in to come transform the defense. Golden State was not a good defense for relative to the rest of the NBA counterparts last year. This year, they're back at the top of the league. Defensive rating, opponents' points per 100 possessions. Golden State was a bottom half team in the league last year. At 15th, they were 114.5. Now they're back up to the top 5 in the league. And this is another thing that Steve Kerr said. If we want to be back to championship contention, we have to defend like we did back in 2022 when they were a top 5 defense. Now they are. Opponents' points per game, if we're going to look at the raw numbers there. Last year, 18 more teams scored more points per game. 18 more opponents scored more points per game than Golden State did last year. Now, they're a top 10 team in defensive points allowed per game. And this is another one that I really actually wanted to highlight. Golden State has been fantastic at not only getting out in transition offensively, but also limiting teams in transition. And that just, overall can help a team, kind of get into a better defensive flow, right? If you're not letting teams get easy buckets, then it's going to be harder on them automatically to just have more half-court possessions. They're not getting these quick runouts. Golden State's limiting that kind of stuff. Last year, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA at defending fast breaks. 20th in points allowed. Now, they are the second best team in defending fast breaks per game. And that just goes to show that how many more possessions they're getting offensively and the easy looks they're limiting on defense. They've also gone from 23rd in steals to 4th in this league, so they're creating a ton more turnovers, and they're also defending the rim at a really high level this year. As far as blocks per game go, 23rd to 8th this season. I mean, as far as I can't name a thing that Golden State's not gotten better at defensively this year. They're guarding in front of the ball, they're staying in front of their man. And they're honestly just they're creating havoc for teams out there. Teams are underestimating Golden State, and that's why they're 10-2 right now, because they're giving it their all through the first 12 games of the NBA season. I've showed you guys a bunch of stats, but I got to give you the meat and potatoes now. What Steve Kerr had to say about his 2 new assistant coaches. He said, "I couldn't be happier with these 2 guys. What they mean to me and what they mean to our team. It goes way beyond X's and O's and what coverages we're in and what plays we run. It's just the culture, the fit into the culture, and adding to it." And the vibe and the friendship and the collaboration. They're both just wonderful coaches. But also, I look forward to seeing them and working with them every day. And you know what? That's not really the vibe we got last year from Golden State. It seemed like everybody just was butting heads. It seemed like that era was over. And you know what? They decided to call it quits. Said, it's okay, Clay, you can move on, and we'll continue on with what we got with Steph, Draymond, the young pieces, and whoever we bring in free agency. And that's why it seems like everybody this year is super bought into what the coaching staff is preaching. They all seem like they want to give it all. They're all night in and night out. They all want to see each other succeed. Nobody's, necessarily ball hogging at the end of the game or icing each other out. Everybody wants to see this team succeed, and they're all playing for one common goal. And that's what a team's all about, man. I love the way that Golden State has been playing so far this year. And if you're happy with the way that this coaching staff has helped them play so far this year, give me a like on today's video. Before we go, make sure you hit that thumbs up icon. And also, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We bring you Golden State Warriors content like nobody else all season long on YouTube. So make us your #1 spot for Golden State Warriors content, youtube.com/WarriorsTV. We'll see you in the next one. Let's go Dubs.